We did actually prepare some just questions, some general knowledge questions that people
Mythbusters,
so a bit of a tie on Mythbusters, but ballbusters.
Yeah,
So some interesting questions you might.
Because obviously there's a lot of
answers.
myths out there, and we thought we'd get them all out, and especially for our predominantly male listener
18
base,
to 24-year-old demographic.
I mean, I think when it comes to awareness as well, especially for young people, they're going to think they're invincible, right? Especially coming out of school, starting uni.
But you're not.
And obviously, you're not. So just make sure. No, here's the myth that we want to. I guess we kind of want to.
Is it okay for one testicle to sit higher than the other? I'm definitely asking for a friend on this one.
Yeah, it's quite normal. Usually where the testicles sit in someone who's a fully grown male depends a little bit on the tightness of the muscles around it. And so, it's normal for one to sit slightly higher than the other. If they sit really high, like up in the groin, and they can't be milked down or pressed down, then that's an abnormality called an undescended testicle. So that's usually associated with the fact that it's an abnormal development, and they can be all the way up into the back of the abdomen as well. So usually they're smaller, they haven't developed normally, and those ones can actually be at increased risk of cancer as well. So sometimes we remove those ones, but once if they're dropped in your ball sack or your scrotum, it's normal for one to be
sweet.
higher than the other.
There you go. Yeah.
It's a relief. Did you want to go next?
This is on a more serious note, but obviously there's a lot of stuff out there about how testicular cancer is quite common in young men. Out of probably all the cancers, is it possibly the most common?
Yeah, it's the most common solid organ cancer. So I think leukemia might be slightly higher in incidence.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
which is a blood cancer, so doesn't count as a solid organ cancer. Yeah.
Do you see lots of young patients that do have testicular cancer, and what is what is the most common age range, I guess, that you get? In your practice that are.
Yeah, so the most common is sort of between the ages of 20 and 40, I suppose.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's the most common cancer at that age. It's but it can occur in the teens as well.
Yeah.
And we've got a podcast episode coming out on testicular cancer, and I think there are campaigns to raise awareness on it, just for self-examination and making sure that boys don't feel embarrassed about it or try and ignore it because they don't want to tell their mum or their or their friends or anything like that. It's amazing how often it's found by a guy's partner. And they're going, this doesn't feel right. This wasn't like this a few months ago. And they're the ones that are sort of forcing the guy to go and get checked out. It's very easy to get checked out with an ultrasound, and that's a very sensitive way of picking it up. And it's one of those cancers where it can grow really fast. So the faster you diagnose it, the better the outcome.
That's good. That's
next question. So growing up, my dad would always tell me that when you're sleeping, not to wear too many layers of pants around your gonads because the heat may cause issues with fertility when you're older. Is that a myth or real?
Well, it is true that the testicles like to be at a cooler temperature for sperm production, or spermatogenesis as we call it. So for couples that are trying to conceive, they're often told to the guy's not told not to have a hot bath, before he.
Yeah, right.
Before they,
I didn't know that.
have a go. So, that's why the testicles are outside the body. Outside the abdomen is that it's a couple of degrees cooler down there.
Oh, interesting.
Unless you're wearing multiple layers of underpants.
Very interesting. These are things that you just never know,
and they just shrivel up.
Well, that's the muscles
shrinkage.
Sort of contracting. Yeah.
We should ask about that's going to be my next question. Is shrinkage? Should people be ashamed of shrinkage, or you just got to own your shrinkage?
No, it's all. I mean, the vascular. It's especially the penis is basically a blood sponge. So vascular spaces dilate in warm weather and contract in cold weather.
A laptop on your belly when you're sitting there without anything between your laptop and your skin, is that the Wi-Fi radiation of that bad for fertility?
Are you saying you're using it while you're naked?
No, but like say you don't have a say you don't have a shirt on and you're just lying in bed watching YouTube and your laptop's sitting on your stomach. Is that bad for it to be so close to your gonads?
Or just in general radiation with your phone in pocket and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any problems with it. I think the level of radiation is probably so low that it's not going to affect things too much.
This is another probably a big one, a big myth or ball breaker. Ball buster. The old breaking the seal thing, is that a myth or is that a real thing, that if you're drinking and you go have your first piss, then you're going to just keep going back? I'm really intrigued about that, because everyone always asks about if breaking the seal is a really big thing and say, don't break the seal. But for me, it's just like, well, obviously you're drinking a lot, it takes time.
I think that's right, yeah. It does seem to be a real thing, though. Like, people definitely anecdotally report that's the case. But I think you're right. It's just the fact that you've been drinking so much. Alcohol is a diuretic, and it creates more urine, and it causes irritation to the bladder as well. So all of those things probably are accumulating, and then once you've gone for the first one, then you've got a whole, usually if you're hanging on, you'll build up urine, but you're probably not producing as much urine, so it backs up a little bit. It doesn't really back up to the kidneys, but if you empty your bladder, you will get a whole flood of extra fluid being passed through your kidneys back into the bladder, so it'll fill up again quite quickly if you've been drinking a lot.